difference between trying like a seltzer water and having one of our drinks. They helped with socialization. They help with, maybe some energy or some relaxation, and just enough that gets like, kind of takes the edge off after a long day, but doesn't make you inebriated like alcohol. So you wake up the next day feeling good, and for those who are a little bit socially anxious, a lot of times that's why people do drink alcohol. They are, might have a couple beers, and because they have that social anxiety that when they're out in public, and our drinks help with that without making them, take one too many. It's like that first drink, not like your 10th.
Right.
Yeah. So reception's been awesome across the country. Texas has been one of the main ones. We actually ship truckloads out of cans into Texas.
That's amazing.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I guess on the other side of it, there's always a negative to a positive. What's been some of the kind of pushback you guys have gotten from certain retail places?
Yeah, I would say usually it's when people don't know. So they don't know what it is. They think, are people really wanting this? And then they get a little of that like FOMO once they see, someone down the street carrying it or people asking about it, and then they start reaching out again. So I think it's just a matter of time that we see more alcohol alternatives in the stores. We already see it a lot now with, having an offering when you go to a alcohol bar or a restaurant. They have like a non-alc, menu that isn't for kids. Mm-hmm. That's really what it comes down to, right? Like who wants to sit and drink a seltzer water and a lemon when your friends are enjoying something that's tastier? So I think that makes a big difference. And I think, what would you say, James? Anything else besides really the unknown? That's, I think, probably the biggest.
Yeah,
we've seen.
The biggest thing is the unknown or the misinformation that's out
mm-hmm.
there. When Kratom got banned, a while back, that kind of just put this negative stigma in people's mind. And they didn't know why. They didn't know what it was. They didn't really know anything about it. They just know that this happened. So, anytime we get a small bit of information, everybody starts to be afraid of what they don't know. And that's the thing is we always fear the unknown. And until people become educated, they will typically be fearful. But as this comes out and it becomes more and more and more abundant, it really it becomes more accepted and known, and people get educated, and they really start to understand what it is. So it's the fear of the unknown out there, and that's really where we see the pushback on that. But honestly, it's becoming less and less on a daily basis.
Well, there's Consumer Protection Act, so. When James was mentioning the thought of the ban in 2016, there was there was the thought that it could happen, that what's out there, what is this kratom product, and people were fearful, and so the the FDA was looking at banning it. It didn't get banned, and there's a lot of scientific evidence that shows that there's a lot of great properties with it, and now they have a Consumer Protection Act that is, passed in Texas. It's passed in quite a few different states now, and that is really so that it's unadulterated. So our plants that we use we're trying to stay as, true to the roots or the, leaf as possible. So we actually brew it as a crushed leaf tea, and then, then it goes through our brewing process and gets canned. We don't use extracts. We don't use anything that's going to, could be abused because of the potency of it. And so ours are really kind of a mild, like euphoric feeling. And with the Consumer Protection Act, it really has helped make those products more safe for everybody, really.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, that's, the thing, people look at one product and they associate it with another. And being that we don't use extracts, that's where a lot of the stigma around it is in the extracts. You see a lot of these companies, they're getting attacked by it, and it's because of that extract. And we stick to that crushed leaf to keep it very natural. We stick to the purest form possible, and we're always looking for new ways to basically innovate and keep things as clean as possible and to offer the best product. There's quite a few things that I'm currently working on that is going to change the kava and kratom and the plant buzz industry in general. Honestly.
Wow. Can you give us any hints or time frame as to when people can look forward to that?
100% top secret, because that is in the works. There's other people out there that if they have the same intel, they would be like, oh, let's try that. So it's it's kind of like how, with beer brewing, we all know, okay, you take this and you take this, and we have basic recipes for that. This is creating entirely new processes around, something. So this, if somebody was to have made an entirely new fermentable beer type beverage and they hadn't even released it yet, that's kind of like what's going on, and then some, because these processes are brand new. There's a lot of stuff out there that people want to be able to do, but they just haven't figured out how to do it yet. Or, it can cost a lot of money. There can be a few $100,000 just in equipment to be able to create these things. So that's why I've been doing testing on a small scale and then proving my theories and then basically getting ready to move forward on it. So this way we basically can keep ahead of the game, leading the plant buzz.
This is what I love so much about brewing. It is literally the combination of science and art together, and
right?
you're
totally
proving it right there. You're like, well, I have my theories and I have my hypotheses, and so I'm working on it so I can create this thing that, like you said, is going to absolutely revolutionize the entire industry, which is already like in its infancy stage. So if you're already blowing something completely out of the water that's already in its infancy stage, I can't wait to see what the future looks like.
I'm excited for it, to say the least.
He's like a master magician behind the brewery door.
Yeah, if you got a few $1 million sitting around and you want to let me play with it, I'm more than happy to buy more lab equipment too.
If I had a few $1 million, I think I'd be in a much different place in life.
I figured I'd ask,
Yeah. Well, what we're going to do, we'll revisit the conversation. It will be fun.
All right. Sounds like a plan.
Yeah. Well, the reason I asked about the pushback is because of the fact that this plant is something, I figured that's kind of what some of the pushback was either the misinformation or just uninformation in general. And there are so many people, unfortunately, in the world, I imagine us are to a small scale on that factor as well, that they'll read a headline or they'll look at whatever's scrolling on the TV and they'll take them for their word for it, but they don't actually read the article. They don't do any more research on it past that. So when you do see these things, like I know here in Texas, there's a couple of weeks or maybe a month or so that you were like, all right, is Delta 8 illegal? Is it legal? Can you still buy it? What's going on? And it's, I imagine the same thing obviously with the Kratom is happening as well. Like here in Arlington, where the Rangers play, there's a Texas Live attached to it, and in between is this massive stage that used to be called Arlington Backyard. Well, now it's called CBD Kratom Backyard, and people kind of lost their minds because there was just, why would you allow a naming right for a plant that is grown in the ground that is illegal in almost every other state? It's like, just stop thinking about that kind of thing, and it's like you have to realize that this shouldn't be illegal first off, and the amazing health benefits from this one plant. This is just a hemp plant, not even counting the other plants that you can break down in all these different ways that are helping people on so many different levels that I think people just need to stop thinking in their old way of thinking and really start doing the research and really, be scientists themselves. Take some kratom, take some CBD, take some kava or kana and see what it does to your own body and realize, oh, this gives me so much more benefits than I ever really knew that I could ever have.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely.
Yeah, definitely.
Absolutely. And having it in the right way and in the right environment is also very important too. A lot of people will be like, oh, okay, well maybe I'm going to try out Kratom for the first time, and they just go to some random smoke shop or some gas station and they buy something that they have no clue what it is. And the person behind the counter doesn't really know, and the guy that buys it, they take a little bit too much, and they, have a bad experience. That's why we have these kava cultures. That's why we have our product, because we try to steer people in the best direction possible. And, it's all about the education to it. You want to make sure that you're getting the best product possible. When there was a little bit of something that pops up, with kava back in the day, they try to make this big thing, oh, kava is not good for you, for your liver, this, that, and the other. Well, what came down to was that they were testing a product that was adulterated and they didn't release that part of that. They basically were like, oh, it's having this negative side effect, so on and so forth. Well, it turns out that the product was adulterated. It wasn't the proper part of the plant that they were testing. They actually had a few other things that were incorporated in it, and turns out, after extensive studies, that kava has no ill effects on the liver. And it's just come out, and people are like, oh, wow, this is crazy. So all these places that were up in arms about kava before, looking at it negatively, are like, we're not going to allow that in our area, are now like, oh, okay, we need to rethink this. And that's going to become a regular thing as more and more science is released, as more and more benefits are seen and less repercussions are seen. It's really just going to kind of open up the market a lot more. The more that the Consumer Protection Act is developed as well, we're going to see a lot more to it as well. You know, it's just really, the more information we get out there, the better. The more people that can get educated, you know, even just, you know, like this podcast, this is going to help to reach more people. Every time we get out there and we talk about it, every location that opens up, it's a chance to educate a couple more people and, you know, possibly change somebody's life, because I know it's definitely done a lot for me.
Well, I mean, you go into it. What are some of the benefits you've had from it?
Well, I mean, I deal with social anxiety. I'm on the spectrum, and definitely the first time I ever had kava was on a date, and I was stressed out. I wasn't drinking alcohol at the time because I quit smoking cigarettes. And honestly, trying to date when you don't drink alcohol, people look at you sideways. But I got invited to a kava bar. Being a guy, I ordered the strongest kava drink. I'm like, yeah, just give me the strongest thing on the menu. I got about halfway through it, and I had zero stress. Like, this weight was lifted off my body. And I just felt amazing. And that's when my, eyes opened up. And I'm like, holy smokes. So I was traveling 30 minutes every other day just to get to this kava bar. It was the kava culture.
Before I knew him.
Yep, before I knew Jacquelyn or Caroline or anything. And honestly, it works out that way. It's very serendipitous the way that things happen. And I honestly am grateful for it every single day. And I do drink occasionally, but it's less and less and less. I think last year I drank a total of 2 times in the entire year. And it was probably less than 6 drinks. I don't feel the need to anymore because I have something else there. And some people, they still want to go and drink on the weekends, but they find that this is the best alternative for them during the week because, you know, they can wake up and they're not, you know, a little foggy trying to get to work. They're not running a little bit slower. They don't have that little bit of a headache. You know, whatever it might be that, you know, takes it out of you when you have a few drinks during the week. And they still want to have it on the weekends. They want to go out with their friends. That's fine. But, you know, to be able to have something the other days, to be able to have that little bit of release, that little bit of an outlet, that place to go to hang out, that's what we are really excited to have here. You know, we have that kind of special place that people that don't want to be drinking alcohol can come and hang out and kind of almost have their little sanctuary.
And I mean, a lot of people aren't sober either. Like, some will come in and just they come out, you know, during certain days of the week, and then on the weekend they're still going out, you know, with their friends. Like, it's definitely a spot that everyone is welcome without being any, you know, judgment of oh yeah, I drink or I don't drink or whatever. It's kind of just making it real, right? It's this is the community, and you know, we accept you how you are, and everyone just kind of. It's funny though, what we've seen so much of is that a lot of people will stop drinking after coming to kava bars because they either stop drinking or just stop some other habits because they realize they just feel so much better hanging out at the kava bar. Because it's kind of like the mixture of a coffee shop and a bar. So you get that daytime, you know, excitement, and then at nighttime, instead of having your glass of wine or your drink, you're like, oh, let's go to the kava bar and have a kava to relax.
Yeah. Well, I mean, Jacquelyn, speak on your benefits. What have you, I mean, you've been in this, I feel like, longer. How have your benefits over the years been?
Yeah, I mean, I used to work in finance before, so my sister and I started kava culture 6 years ago, and then we started Botanical just over 3 years ago, I guess. Yeah.
4 years in March.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, so it is almost 4.
Yeah.
So
happy anniversary.
So I used to drink wine at the end of the night when I would get off of, you know, doing major financial decisions for people. I was doing financial planning and investments, and so I'm like type A personality, and I'd be up until midnight every night if I didn't like stop myself and have like a glass of wine or something to kind of like